resources for RA and PUA, and especially at the county level, at the government level, county level. So what we did, we first looked at the separate aspects, and we started with regenerative agriculture. And looking across all the 7 counties, the most widely adopted practice was compost manure application, followed by intercropping and crop rotation. So the others followed mulching, agroforestry, conservation, tillage, but I don't know whether my pointer is working. I hope it will not happen. So when you look at this data, in terms of these practices, there are huge numbers overall. But when you come to the specific in county level, and that's why I said the data needs to be read overall and also looking at the context as per the counties or areas of operation. There are some counties that you see that some of these practices have low numbers. And one unique county is Kericho. We have 2 counties that are very unique information. That is Kericho and Uasin Gishu. So in terms of practices, the numbers are very unique. But then when we probed the data further, or looked even at the farming system in these 2 counties, they are mainly represented by large-scale farming systems. So number 1, if you look at Kericho, most of the practices are dictated by the actors that are within the farming system. Kericho is a tea farming county. And for them to adopt any practice, then it is determined by either the cooperative or the company that is buying their tea. So in terms of adoption, they are very careful when it comes to adopting some of these practices if they've not been qualified by the person who's uptaking their products. So the assumption is maybe that is what is affecting the adoption. In Uasin Gishu, we are looking at Eldoret. For those who are not Kenyan, Eldoret, that is the main headquarters for that. But this is categorized by very huge, large-scale farms. So looking at that, and you look at the practices that large-scale farms do, then that might affect the practices in terms of regenerative agriculture. So when you ask the farmers, what is the challenges in terms of, or what challenges do you face in terms of your farm operations? Drought came as number 1. And remember these counties that we're talking, these are high, some of them are high rainfall counties, Kakamega, Kericho. But on the question asking, they said drought is a major factor, followed by pests and diseases, erratic rainfall, and lastly we are seeing flooding. So in terms of barriers to regenerative agriculture adoption, cost was the major factor. And we'll see in terms of this. Knowledge, we always say training. Train the farmers. But in this case, in regenerative agriculture, we can see the numbers for awareness or knowledge, in this case, are very low. But in terms of affordability of the technologies, but if you look at the previous chart, remember, the most adopted practices are organic in the farm because of the practices that already happen. But looking at the most commercial aspects, especially on organic fertilizers, you could see the numbers are very low. And maybe that would explain because of the cost aspects. In terms of access and availability of inputs, we are seeing a low number, that is 8%. Land constraints, 7%, and water, 6%. When it comes to energy access, grid electricity, the farmers are well connected when it comes to grid. In Kenya and in those counties, it seems that electricity is there. So overall, we could see that and most of our electricity is powered through hydro energy. So most of the farmers are already connected to the grid. But this will give us on the use. This is just sources that we're looking at. We look at solar, quite a huge number, 53%. But on gas, the adoption or the access is very, very low. So, again, we're talking about productive use. So we are not only looking at access. So we went further and asked, in terms of use, how do you use your energy in the farm? So the data shows us that most of the energy is for powering appliances, radio, and TV. So though most energy is mainly used in the evening and in the early mornings. In the evening for entertainment, and in the early mornings for also updates. Again, lighting comes as number 1, followed by entertainment, cooking. So that is renewable energy. In this case, I'm speaking about. Irrigation, farmers have tried to adopt. Value addition, as you can see, is nearly zero, or the use is very, very, very low. When we ask about the challenges, as we've seen in terms of uses, again, cost, 60% of the farmers said affordability is the issue in terms of energy. Again, followed by unreliable supply, maintenance challenges, and a few numbers say they can't access. So from the data we see, the issue is not access. The issue is affordability. The issue is not that they are able to access, but even the one that they are able to access, they are not using it for agricultural production or for their own. They are only using it for lighting and entertainment. And maybe this is mainly in the morning and in the evening, and at night when they need light. But in terms of their practices in the farm, the energy they don't use. So now we've looked at RA, that is regenerative agriculture, and we also look at energy in terms of adoption and access. But what is the integration or the use of both for farm productivity? So when it came to the question of are they aware of the nexus, the awareness is there. They understand issues to do with solar, biogas, in combination with irrigation and all that, they know. But the awareness is not matching the adoption. Looking at Kakamega, where we saw 93% of the farmers said they are aware, but the adoption is very low, 18%. 18%. Again, I said, we have a unique county, that is Kericho. The adoption of all the farmers that we interviewed, 0. Of RA pure. This was a surprise also, looking at the activities that are happening in Nakuru. And Nakuru is an agricultural county also. The awareness is very high, but the adoption is also nearly 0. So then, it begs us to ask the question, why are they not adopting if they are aware of these technologies and they are maybe aware of the benefits that they can get from using the RN nexus. I've not answered anything because research we are not answering. For us is asking questions and the right questions. All of us as a movement, as we move forward, then we'll start answering these questions. Awareness. In terms of information channels and delivery for RAPUA, farmer groups and cooperatives came out as the most important channel for communication if the farmers are to adopt the technology of the Nexus. So going forward as the movement, this will be very critical for us, and I know some of the partners have already started working with farmer field schools and farmer groups and cooperatives to ensure this. So followed by extension, and then peer-to-peer learning was also very important. And then we can see media and also development partners coming in. Again, a unique number that we need to note, because we're also dealing with SMEs and technology providers. And they only provide, when we ask the farmers, only 3% said they got the information from the companies. So we expect maybe the companies are the ones that are selling, and they are also ones facilitating in terms of awareness and sharing information. But the data says otherwise. Again, when you look at the RAPO combination, from the previous data, the strong preference reflects to irrigation or solar irrigation. Then this comes on the question of water access, which we didn't see as a big issue. So that means they prefer, the most preferred combination is an RA practice plus solar irrigation. But again, we need to probe further, because then we need to ask what is the motivation for the farmer to adopt that combination. Is it just for subsistence use? Is it for local use? Or is it for them to be able to increase their income or access the markets? Okay? So again, this might tell us, yes, they prefer that. But again, for them to adopt, then we need to ask that question. In terms of support, when you ask what support do you need as a farmer or as a technology user, financing was a very huge support that they need. So I think there are guys who are doing it. I heard there was something that is enabling farmers to access finance. So as you see, farmers need that support. But it's not only financing support, but support that is tailored to their needs, not a burden. We've seen these things coming in, but this financial support, especially to access them, becomes a burden to some of the farmers. So we need maybe financial support that is tailored to their needs and that will not become a burden for them. In terms of suppliers for technology and the business types, most of the suppliers in the market are only for regenerative agriculture inputs, and we are seeing very low numbers when it comes to productive use of renewable energy. So if you see 66% compared to 32%, so the players of productive use of renewable energy players, they are not active as much. But in terms of regenerative agriculture, we have a lot of companies and suppliers in those 7 counties. The supply ecosystem is active and expanding, and as you can see, relatively young companies are operating within this. So this means that there is a huge opportunity for investors to come and support and work along with the farmers. So in terms of RA, the market is mature, but in terms of pure, the market is developing in this case. So what is, we need the pure technology providers to come in, and when they come in, they should not come in as individuals or as standalone. So they should find a way of them working together with other pure technology providers and also with the farmers to fill the gap. As I said, the suppliers are fragmented, very fragmented. So in terms of financial models and accessibility, cash transactions dominate within the supply market. So 66% of the suppliers, they want upfront payments. Pay as you go models follows. Then we have partnered financing arrangements, and mainly this is through NGOs and cooperatives, and also group-based financing presented. Risk and hire, very low. So then this begs the question of which is the most appropriate financing model for us for the farmers to be able to adopt the RA technologies and without burdening them, and also helping them improve their productivity. In terms of gender dynamics, it is organic. 62% was female representation, and even most of the respondents that we talked to were women. So in this, they play a very critical role, and that is not something that we can assume. So when it comes to giving solutions, then they should be tailored towards the needs of the largest representation in the farming community, which is women. And sometimes, especially on technology use, in terms of operations and also maintenance. Because you'll also find that if the farm is led, or most of the activities are women-led, and the technology is not favorable to them, then the adoption will not be there. So there will be, what do you call it? There will be apathy towards. So in case of any breakdown, they will always wait for somebody to come and repair it, or work with, or even work with it. So as we continue working with the farmers, the technology should reflect the users, the main users in the field. And in terms of the males, focus more on commercial viability, scaling, integration, and market system. Money. So they will help in terms of value addition and market access. So in terms of conclusion, so demand is high and finances constrain adoption. Solar irrigation is the primary entry point, but it has to be anchored by the key crops. So what is the motivation? It's not only about adoption of regenerative agriculture and productive use of renewable energy, but also we need to go further above the chain in terms of market access that will spur the adoption. Biogas has high potential. The core gap is practical integration. Again, it's not awareness. We've seen counties require differentiated approaches. So as the data we presented, it may be in 7 counties, but every county is unique in terms of their farming systems, in terms of their culture, and the way they operate. The supply systems are fragmented, and they favor specialization. So in terms of adoption, when we're speaking to farmers, we need to use the right channels of communication. And also we need to work with policy actors to ensure that the issues of RA and pure are mainstreamed within policy. And they are also budgeted for, not only mainstreaming, but also resources are allocated to RA pure activities. Again, gender is an issue. Women and youth participation is critical. And we'll see that most of the people involved in the farm level are women. So that means that as we also look for technologies to give to the farming community, they need to be tailored towards the needs of the users. And we not only users, we need to note who are mainly involved in using those technologies. And again, that's why we did all this demonstration and evidence with drive scale. And for that, we will start with 7 trials in the 7 counties, in the mother trials, where we'll test and work with the farmers. These are trials that are located in farmer farms, not in other institutions, because we want to see how the farmers are interacting with technology, what are the hindrances, what are the benefits, what are the nuances and the behaviors. And that's why we locate the 7 trials in the farmers' field and work with them practically. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wilson. And I think as we... So you can scan the code to access the report, which is summarized. We also have some flyers that are going round. I think we can have the team set up for us for the plenary as we invite the next session. Quickly, we can have the team setting up for the 6th. I just have a question as Wilson asked. Does the recommendations or the findings resonate with us? By show of hand. By show of hand, if it resonates. Thank you so much. So I think we have a long way to go. At this point, I want to invite Ms. Mora to take us to the next session and also invite the panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So my name is Mora Ratemo from Penam, Kenya, a partner of the movement. So I have the pleasure and honor of inviting the panelists for our next session. And as I invite them, I want to give you a brief profile about them, and then we are going to clap for them as they also come to the podium, so that we give them confidence to come here. Is that okay? Okay. So I have the pleasure to first invite Mr. Michael Onchambo. Mr. Michael is the director of FOLU. FOLU is a Food and Land Use Coalition of Kenya. He provides overall leadership and developing in terms of delivering following Kenya strategies, programming framework, fundraising, project delivery, building and managing partnerships and communications. So he gives strategic directions on approaches and best practices related to food systems transformation in Kenya by operationalizing and delivering on productive and regenerative agriculture. We have spoken about RA, so that is regenerative agriculture. So Mr. Onchambo also works in terms of, in Kenya, in terms of protecting and restoring nature, reducing food loss and waste, healthy diets and whole food systems transitions. So he currently serves as a bridge between the Kenya County Platform, FOLU Partners, and FOLU Global Secretariat. So he has over 20 years in terms of working in different organizations. And one of it is Rainforest Alliance. So give hands or claps for Mr. Onchambo. Thank you, sir. You can have a seat. I also need some microphones around there. So the next person is Mr. Patrick Sigay from Bonping, and he is now a business and circular advisor and program manager for the link pathway of the Power for Food Partnership at Bonping, where he leads in terms of market systems, interventions that strengthen the nexus between RA and pure. I hope you remember productive use of renewable energy. So with over 16 years of experience in agribusiness, renewable energy, food systems, and private sector development, he has advised enterprises, farm organizations, financial institutions, and also in terms of programs across Africa. So I want to welcome Mr. Patrick Sigay to the podium. Karibu sana, hands for him, claps. As we want to balance gender, we now go to the women. My first, okay. So the second, the third person is Engineer Alice Nyaga from the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, and she has a background in terms of agriculture engineer, and she offers services in terms of agriculture engineering. She currently serves, she's in charge of agriculture land management units, and she leads in terms of agricultural land resource management, entailing soil and waste management, soil health and fertility, climate change, and also mitigation and adaptation and resilience. And also she leads in terms of agroecology and biodiversity preservation for sustainable food systems. Karibu sana, engineer. Claps for her until she sits down. Yeah, just pass here. Karibu. So the last person is a farmer, but farmers are not last. I want her to shine as she comes here. Her name is Beatrice Wangoi. She's a farmer. Thank you, Beatrice. So Beatrice gave us a story. So when, in terms of her journey, she has a lot of experience. So she's a seed ambassador for Seed Savers Network. She's a leader in terms of Melacom organic farmers, born and raised in a farming household, and Beatrice brings over 40 years of experience as a lived farmer in terms of her work. So for the past decade, she has dedicated herself to seed saving, agroecology, regenerative agriculture, practices the champions on both at community and also at at farmer level. So Beatrice also is an expert. You can also engage her. She has a long journey in terms of regenerative agriculture and community seed systems. She's also productive in terms of renewable energy on her farm and also does seed saving. Karibuni sana. I hope everyone has the mic close. So we want to start. So we are going to have a series of questions, and then after we'll give the open floor for questions. So I want to start with Mr. Patrick Sigay. The first question is, what can private sector do to deliver affordable and appropriate financial products that enable smallholder farmers and agri-SMEs to invest in renewable energy technologies such as solar, irrigation, and renewable energy? So please try to unpackage that question for us.
Right. I think it is good to start by mentioning that the most viable or the most practical private sector financing models that have worked are actually financing stronger business cases and not technologies. It is good to start that way. And it is also important to mention that as we think about affordability, I saw from the presentation here that affordability could actually be a financing problem. It could also be a business case problem. So once we understand that, I would also want to mention that for affordability to be a financing problem, I want to give a typical example of a farmer who is growing, say, regenerative agricultural produce, say, vegetables. But the farmer already understands that the market is working, so there is a viable market for the vegetables. There is a proper route to market. But the only challenge that they are facing is that between now and the time of production, their cash flow cannot allow them to be able to produce. And so they are actually going for a credit facility to be able to bridge the gap. So because of the challenges in the cash flow, then the challenge now becomes a financing issue and not a business case issue. That is why I'm saying affordability sometimes is a financing problem. Sometimes though, there is another farmer who is uptaking, say, irrigation technologies, and who also want to set up an RA pure farming system, for instance. But there is no viable market access. There is no justifiable business case to start with. There is no proper routes to market and things like those. And so then the issues are actually compounded and not just a financing issue. It then becomes a business case issue. There is no stronger business case in there. And so affordability of financing then would actually arise from addressing the conditions that can actually create better market systems. It is good to start that way. But then how can then the private sector support in developing products that can address some of these issues? The first thing that we need to do, and as a private sector, we actually ought to align the features of a financial product with what we are calling the customer jobs a number of times. And what are customer jobs? If you look at the farmer, his aspiration, for instance, is to have, what are the aspirations of farmers, perhaps? Maybe you could hear. Right? Increased income, working markets, reduced risks. But then the agro-dealers on the other end are actually worried about things like, oh, I need higher turnover, I need a quicker conversion of stock into cash and things like those. But then there are these other technology producers or the companies themselves. For them, their aspiration is actually a market entry or an extended market entry for that matter. In all this, or while the financial institutions, for instance, or the mainstream financial institutions are actually struggling with issues like, can they be able to repay? Do they have proper traction? Do they have proper records to demonstrate that this actually is a bankable or something that they can be underwritten against, right? So then there is a clear mismatch then in that case. And so where does the private sector come in? Then it becomes an issue of matching the product features with some of these aspirations, but also some of the perceived risks versus also the real risks. And that is where then the aspect of co-creation comes in. So that the financial institutions, we are not developing products specifically for our technology, but we are co-developing products with the users of the technology. Because sometimes it is not just about a technology per se, but sometimes it is also about aligning the technology itself with the production cycles, or even financing of the production cycles. Sometimes mainstream financial institutions would have products or financial products that you need to repay, say, within a period of 1 month. Yet the seasonality of agri systems, for instance, would require that then your income would be generated after, say, 3, 6, 8, or even 12 months. So aligning that and co-creating that with the financial institutions become very critical in designing appropriate and desirable products. But having said that, I also want to mention that some of the technologies or some of the business case or business use cases of some of the financing mechanisms that have been put in place is, for instance, the aspect of technology as a service, which is actually quite rampant currently. Drying as a service, cooling as a service, or even energy as a service per se. And so the aspect of owning that asset, it does not arise, but the farmer or the technology user pay for extracting value out of that technology. Of course, there are other blended finances, and even the pay-go model. I think it agrees with the finding that the penetration of energy for lighting purposes is around 70%. Why do you think so? Pay-go model. But it is because pay-go model is actually synchronized with the micro incomes that are actually prevalent at the farm level. And so it is possible for any user to be able to be paid on a daily basis. Sometimes it is not actually cutting across all the other uses as well. So I think it is, as I conclude, it is important to mention that financing follows viability. It does not create it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Clap for Mr. Segre. I want to go to government. So I want to pose a question to Engineer Alice Nyaga. So how can the National Ministry and county government departments better coordinate agriculture and energy policies to support the adoption of RA, that's regenerative agriculture, and pure, that is productive use of energy among farmers? So just answer in a short sentences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Kenya has policies in RA and pure. I want to adapt those abbreviations or acronyms. And regenerative agriculture has been part of our work as we promote agroecology, CSA, that is climate smart agriculture, and we have policies to that. There's also the energy policies, and the latest one, which I'll quote, is the Kenya Energy Policy 2025 to 2034. So it is the most current, the most updated. The CSA strategy, policy, it is expiring this year, so it is due for review. But all these review are focused. It is to make sure that the policies work for the citizens. In summary, the renewable energy development, as stated in that policy, it emphasizes the use of renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, geothermal, and bioenergy, where now biogas comes in, to provide clean. Clean means it has less greenhouse gas emission. As you know, Kenya is a signatory to international conventions to reduce greenhouse gases, in particular the Paris Agreement, and this policy aligns to that. It also talks about the technologies of application of the renewable energy, especially for cooking. You remember, energy is not just for production, it's also for the non-productive. So efficiency and conservation of these energy sources is emphasized. So we are supposed to adopt technologies both in agriculture and in our homes to these technologies that conserve and use efficiency. We are also supposed to adapt practices to optimize the energy use and reduce costs. The affordability is key because if you cannot afford the technology, you may want it but may not have it. So when we have these technologies affordable to us, depending on what we are going to use, and for this case, for the productive use, we are supposed to use it in efficiency and weight concern. The other key is reduction of emissions, as I have said, because Kenya commits to the agreements to reduce greenhouse gases. By 2050, we are supposed to be at 0. 2050. Now we are going to 2030. I hope we are in that journey, and I'm believing this policy will lead us to adopt more technologies and practices to help us reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The policy also talks about the challenges of energy access, as the evidence has been given to us, the affordability, and most importantly, the security. Sometimes our technology, like solar panels, they are outside, and many of our areas are not very secure. So the adoption is not necessarily that we cannot afford. We ask ourselves, if I put my solar panels, do I need a watchman on the top of my roof? So security is one of the challenges in use of this fuel, especially now when we come to agricultural technologies. We want these solar panels to be at the river bottom or at the valley where we have this shallow well, and we ask ourselves, do we keep carrying the panels home? That is a cross-cutting issue. So for agriculture and energy policies, they are very well aligned, and the applicability of these policies at the county level is well understood.
Thank you. Claps for Madam Engineer. So I come here to Mr. Onchopa. I want you to give me a response in terms of a question I have. So from your perspective, I know you're an expert in terms of food systems. So how does the Power for Food Partnership contribute to transforming Kenya's agriculture sector towards a more inclusive, climate resilient, and regenerative food system from your perspective? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I know we are time pressed, but I'll just be very brief. From where I stand, I think with the experience on coalition building, and we are talking about the partnership here, that is the Power for Food. So from my view, what I see is that, of course, given the constitution of this partnership, it's basically an element of bringing everybody on board. And I think that has been already presented in even the previous sessions. That is very clear. And that's why I think my answers will not be very unique. But in this case, we've seen what research is able to inform us. And what does it speak to? The levels of adoption, the levels of training. And then that speaks now to the capacity building or the technology trainers in terms of either extension or the real providers of these technologies, whether it's coming from government or from private sector. So what is the need for the farmer? And when we create these solutions, we want to see a situation where everybody is on board. So we are talking across board, from the researchers, the farmers who are adopting these technologies. They are getting involved in terms of not only just being told this is what needs to be done, but also practically doing and adopting, like kind of piloting and then gradually scale up. And this also needs to come along with the investors. They need to see where is the window for investment and what probably has more turnover, and what does that then speak to the business models that probably will be generated out of some of these discussions. But that also speaks to policy, like engineers already mentioned. The policies, yes, especially in the Kenyan setup, the policies are there. But then how well do we inculcate them in terms of planning? For example, now we have devolution. How well are these policies adopted or translated into budgets when we are doing our budgetary planning at the county level or developing our county integrated development plans? So that all speaks together. So basically in a movement and such a kind of a partnership, we want to see where everybody comes on board and where is the space for youth and women in all these discussions. What are those things that probably, or innovations, where youth can be able to run faster with, and what also can bring in inclusion elements. So basically in terms of the partnerships, I think the way it has been structured, we have those organizations within the partnership that are, of course, leaning on the various pathways that we have in the partnership. One of them is, of course, learning. So from the research institutions, and as well as training of farmers, but also the practical experimentation and piloting. But then that speaks to linkage. How do we link this knowledge that we have obtained to solution providers, to investors? And that again leads us to leveraging. How do we use this information? How do we use the evidence that we have obtained from these interventions to speak to now planning and policy influencing, and to a larger extent, how to implement? And that then speaks to a whole food system approach, right from production through probably distribution and transportation. What are those technologies or the pure technologies that are used even in storage and processing? We saw the use of pure in value addition, which is very low. So how do we then bring all that, then have utilization of all these technologies that are pure in terms of production and the whole process of along the value chains to the end? So I think, just briefly to end up there, that we need everybody on board, and that is why we're looking at a partnership and a movement. And even when we build these coalitions, we want everybody to be on board so that the decisions that are made and even the pipelines, investment pipelines that we put together are aligned right from all the stakeholders being on board, and we see value in a lot of creating synergy with the partnerships and coalitions. Thank you.
Thank you. A round of applause. Thank you so much, Mr. Onchampo. I move to our farmer representative. So for Beatrice, you have the option of responding in Swahili or English. We have an interpreter with you. So I'll first ask it in English and then I read it in Swahili. You have the option to respond with either language. So when you began, I know you have 40 years in terms of being a farmer and also actually farming in terms of regenerative agriculture. So what has been your biggest challenge, and what motivated you to shift from conventional now to practice this work with nature? And after 10 years of seed saving and agroecological farming, what are the most significant changes you have observed in terms of your soil health, crop yield, and wider farming community around you? So I'm also going to read it in Swahili so that you just internalize it. So ulipoanza hii safari ya kilimo rejelevu, ni changamoto gani kubwa ulikutana nazo? Ni nini kilichochochea kuacha kilimo cha kawaida kuanza kutumia mbinu za kilimo hai? Baada ya miaka 10 ya kuhifadhi mbegu na kufanya kilimo cha agroekolojia, ni mabadiliko gani makubwa umeona katika afya yako, afya ya udongo, mavuno in terms of mavuno na jamii ambao unaishi nayo? So naweza jibu. Asante.
Okay, asante sana. Wakati nilikuwa nimeanza hiyo kilimo ya mbele, kwetu tunalima katika mashamba ya mawe, hatunaga resources ya maji, na kwa hivyo wakati hata ukame umekuja unakuta hakuna chakula. Na wakati mvua imenyesha, hauna hata mbolea, huna mbegu za kupanda, huna chochote ambacho utaweza peleka kwa shamba. Kwa hivyo akili yako kama mzazi inakuonesha kuna njaa. Na ambapo mnajua mtu ambaye ako na njaa bado anakuwa amekasirika. So katika familia unakuta watoto wawezi pata haya malishe bora, huwezi pata pesa kupeleka watoto shule vizuri, wanakufukuzwa kila siku, na mtoto ukimwona nyumbani roho yako inakuwa imekasirika. So kulikuwa na matatizo mengi sana. Na wakati tulipatana na Seed Savers Organization, na tunashukuru sana kwa sababu walikuwa wanakuja mpaka kwa boma na kuangalia haya mashida ambayo tunapitia kama wazazi. Na walipoanza kutuelimisha maneno ya kilimo hai, ndipo tulianza kuona tutaweza kujihifadhia mbegu zetu, tutaweza kujitengenezea mchanga wetu, na bado tutaweza kujitengenezea madawa zetu za kunyunyizia mashamba yetu. Kwanza mimi ni seed ambassador, mimi ni mwalimu wa kuelimisha walimu wengine maneno ya uhifadhi wa mbegu, na ni mbegu zetu za kiasili. Wale walinitembelea waliona nina mojawapo ya zile mbegu zetu za kiasili ambazo zinaenda zikipotea. Kwa hivyo mimi ni mmoja ambaye naelimisha wakulima wenzangu juu ya kuhifadhi mbegu zetu, kurudisha mbegu zetu zile zinapotea za kiasili, jinsi ya kutengeneza mchanga, kwa sababu mkulima ni mambo matatu. Mkulima awe na mbegu, mkulima atengeneze mchanga uwe na rutuba, na mkulima awe na dawa za kunyunyizia mashamba bila kemikali yoyote. Kwa hivyo tuko na seed banks katika manyumbani zetu ambazo tunahifadhi mbegu zetu, na tuna faida mingi sana kwa kufanya haya mambo matatu. Ni kwa sababu siwezi kwenda kununua mbegu, niko na mbegu za aina mingi, kwa sababu seed bank zetu tumeelimishwa na Seed Savers Network. Kila kitu ambayo unavuna katika shamba lako ni lazima uweke ukiwa mbegu. Kwa hivyo tumeelimishwa maneno ya seed processing, kwa hivyo tunajua kuchagua mbegu kutoka kwa shamba. Tumeelimishwa kufanya moisture testing, germination testing, kwa sababu tuwezi weka mbegu pale kwa seed bank kama tujaona kama itamea vizuri, hata kama imekauka vizuri. Na bado tumeelimishwa maneno ya kuhifadhi hizi mbegu zetu, ni kwa sababu kuna wadudu ambao wanasumbua mbegu zetu, weevils zinatoka kwa shamba. Na nikitaka kutaja faida ama uzuri ambayo tumepata katika hii ukulima, nitaweza kaa hapa kwa muda mrefu sana. Ni kwa sababu za wakati huu tumeweza kulima kama ni mahindi, tumeondokea mahindi ya white. Watu wakiona picha ambayo nimepigwa, tunamina mahindi yale local maize, yale wazazi wetu walikuwa wanalima kitambo, mahindi nyekundu, yellow maize, purple maize, na mpaka ile nyeusi. Hizo mahindi huwa zinastahimili ukame kabisa, hata wakati mvua ni kidogo bado tunavuna. Na hiyo mahindi bado nutrients zake ziko juu. Kwa hivyo tunataka wakulima wote, unajua mkulima akigoma watu wote watakufa. Mmekubaliana na mimi? Na wakulima ndio uti wa mgongo, na tunataka wakulima wetu wakule chakula ambayo iko na afya. Hii kilimo ambayo tunalima bila kemikali, sisi ni madaktari, ni kwa sababu tunapea watu chakula ambayo imelimwa na usafi kutoka kwa shamba mpaka kupikwa, unakula chakula ambayo iko na afya. Tena zamani tulikuwa tunategemea mboga, unakula sukuma, unakula mboga na spinach, hiyo inaisha. Lakini kwa sasa tunalima mboga zetu za kienyeji ambazo tuko na aina kama 12 ambayo tunalima kama kikundi, na tumepata soko ya hizo mboga zetu kwa sababu tumefundishwa na Sixteeners juu ya indigenous vegetables, kwa sababu hata hizo ziko na nutrients za hali ya juu. Kwa hivyo nimewambia nimetoka katika shamba la mawe, kwetu hakuna resources ya maji, lakini nimeelimishwa maneno ya water harvesting. Sio, ni maji ya Mungu, tunajiwekea maji ya Mungu na tunatumia, na sasa hatuwezi sema serikali saidia kwa sababu ya maji. Kwa hivyo nashukuru sana, kwa sababu hii kilimo imebadilisha maisha yangu sana, imebadilisha maisha ya familia yangu sana, na tena ile kitu nafurahia, imebadilisha community, kwa sababu wakati nilitrainiwa kwa Sixteeners Network niliambiwa nirudi kwa community. Kwa hivyo nafurahia sana, ni kwa sababu yale kazi ambayo tulikuwa tunafanya zamani ya kwenda kutafuta vibarua mbali watoto wapate chakula, siku hizi sisi ndio tunauza chakula, tunauza mboga. Ukitaka mbegu zote za kiasili utazipata kwangu. Ukitaka mboga chakula za kiasili utazipata kwangu, na tumepata soko na Mungu ametusaidia, maisha yetu imebadilika, na wakati huu chakula chetu hazipotei, ni kwa sababu tunatumia sola, tunakausha mboga zetu. Wakati watu wanakimbia sokoni wakati wa kiangazi kununua tule tu mboga kidogo sana, sisi tuna mboga zetu ambazo tunakausha vizuri na sola, na tunapata ya familia zetu. Na kuna maneno kuna mbegu mara mbili. Kuna mbegu ambayo inatoka kwa shamba ikiwa imekauka kama mahindi, maharagwe, lakini kuna zingine ziko ndani ya matunda. Kwa hivyo nimeelimishwa hizo zinafanywa seed extraction. Lazima nizitoe kwa mbegu, lazima kwa matunda, lazima nikaushe vizuri, lazima nifanye moisture testing, germination, na ni preserve vizuri kwa seed.
Asante sana, makofi. Now, our interpreter has a big challenge. All of us are interpreters. So, Mr. Dominic, the mic is yours to interpret. Thank you.
For sure it's a challenge, but I'll try. Yeah, from the onset she shared that initially when she was doing farming, the conventional farming, she was experiencing some challenges, some of them being even unable to have enough food for her family, that is nutritious food. Also being unable to pay school fees for her kids, and that was bothering her a lot when she was seeing her children at home being sent to look for school fees. But also she has that when Seed Savers visited them, she was able to receive some training in agroecology, and this comprised of seed saving, composting, that is organic fertilizer making, and also biopesticide. And now she says that she's a seed ambassador, and her work is to also train other farmers in her community. And she reminded some people in the room that those who have visited her, you have seen the diversity that she has in her seed bank. And she's seeing 3 critical issues or 3 critical aspects that every farmer must have. First is seed, the second one is on soil fertility, and the third one is on pesticide. And in the seed bank, they are able to keep their own seeds, and she's happy when she's using her own seeds, making her own organic fertilizer and also a biopesticide. And now she has also been trained on seed processing, germination testing, and moisture testing, and also training in seed preservation. And she mentioned that if she was to share the benefit of the training in agroecology, we can spend the whole time here. But she proceeded to share some of the benefits. One being that she has been able to shift from white maize production to colored maize production, where now she has yellow maize, black maize, purple maize, and I even invited you to check even in the picture that was here where she was holding the colored maize. And she also said that if farmers strike today, all of us will die. And also she said that the farmers are the backbone of the economy. And also she continued to share that they are doctors because they give people food that is free from chemicals and is also nutritious. And comparing to where she was, where she only used to consume fewer vegetables and predominantly sukuma wiki or kales, but now she has been able to go to other diverse indigenous vegetables, and she continued to train other farmers on how they can be able to keep their own seeds. And she said that in terms of other aspects, because her land is very rocky and also the environmental conditions are a bit harsh, that now through the training she has been able to harvest water that she uses on her farm, and she no longer now join other community members to go look for casual labor or what we call vibaruas here. And now she has joined the people that are even selling surplus foods, and ended by sharing that she's now using solar energy to sun dry her vegetables. So when other farmers or other community members are struggling to go to look for market, and that time the quantity is also small, she is able to utilize that for her own family. And in a bit trained the people in the room in terms of the 2 types of seeds. The first one is the dry seeds that mostly you get from cereals and legumes, and then the other one that you get through wet extraction process, whereby you have to ferment vegetable seeds and even fruit seeds that are derived from pulpy fruits, and she's able to preserve the same in her seed bank. Thank you.
Ya mwisho tu. Nataka kuwakaribisha, tuko na First Eastern Indigenous Seed Conference date 17 to 20 November 2026, Nairobi, Catholic University of East Africa. Karibuni sana, tutawaletea mbegu.
Thank you. Now we have the next session in terms of opening the floor. First of all, I want to appreciate everyone for still, being with us. But we now want to give you a chance to ask questions, maybe a burning question, 1 or 2. So with, with a show of hands, Are there any questions in the room? Please raise with confidence if you have a question. I see there are two. I need a lady just to balance. Any lady? We start with the gentleman. Thank you.
Okay.
And also, you say to who?
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Bernard Okech from AgriWatt, which is a solar company. So I have a question to the gentleman who presented the research from Egerton University. I wanted to know from the field, what do you hear the preference of farmers, especially for financing for renewable energy, technologies? Because I know there are different models, and we also have our own model, but I really wanted to hear that, but I think it didn't come out very clearly from the research. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take a round of questions before they respond.
Okay, my name is Frederick Keriasek, a young farmer from Narok. My question is directed to Engineer Alice Nyaga, maybe because she's the person, the government person here, and I wanted to ask this question yesterday when we were with the other day when we were with the CS. Is the main challenge to RA has clearly pointed at affordability. That means money, and without money, it remains a challenge. So my question is directed to you because there was a program that was meant to benefit the young people of this country that is called Enable Youth, that was funded by the Africa Development Fund. And this was directed to the youth of Kenya who are shortlisted, that if you go through the whole process, you get shortlisted. After getting shortlisted, you are probably posted to a training center, different training centers in this country. So along the way, shortlisting was done, and after shortlisting was done, it took another 1 year for them to come to do the verification, and probably it's also taking another 1 year to tell the youth that the verification exercise is over. So the span has been taking a year. These are grants from the African Development Funds, and if the youth of this country were given that opportunity, we could be having the money, and maybe probably programs like implementing or doing the RA could be easier. So probably, I don't know whether you are in charge, but on behalf of the ministry, what happened to such programs that are meant to benefit the youth of this country? Because here in Nairobi, when we come to meetings in Nairobi, policies and paperwork are perfect, but everything ends here in Nairobi. So I don't know where the exact location here in Nairobi, but it ends here in Nairobi. Please, if you can point out, if you can talk to any of those who are in charge, maybe or probably you have the answer. Thank you.
Okay, we take the last question from Madam, and then our panel and our researcher be ready.
My name is Arabanet Kageha from Kakamega, na swali langu linaenda kwa mkulima mwenzangu. Mkulima, ningependa tu unielekeze, natamani kuweka mbegu, naweka lakini sijajua jinsi ya kuweka vizuri sana. Hata leo ndo nimesikia Power for Food Partnership wako Kakamega, but sijua kwa location ni gani. Naomba tu utuelekeze tujue ni jinsi vile tunaweza kuweka hiyo mbegu nyumbani, ndio at least tukue na hiyo knowledge. Mimi mkulima haswa, sababu niko na kila aina ya mbegu lakini sijajua jinsi ya kustore. Tu alafu tena tujue kama mnaweza kutembelea other counties, at least wafundishwe mambo na mbegu, tujue jinsi ya kustore on mbegu, ndio wamama at least tusonge mbele, tuwe kielezo kwa mafamilia.
I'll interpret. The first question is to the farmer on how do you save seeds, and the second was to invite, I think SNV, one of you would respond to that. She wants you to come to her county. So we'll start with the researcher in terms of responding, and be brief because of time.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and I think the question was on the most preferred model of financing, especially the pure technology, if I'm not wrong. From the research, most of the suppliers are using cash payment methods. But if you see, the most preferred is pay-go. That is where farmers are paying while they're using in small installments. But there is a caveat there. We could not write anything and all the nuances on the research when I was presenting. Because then, most of these pay-go models become burdens to farmers. The issue is maybe suppliers just want to sell without a value proposition. Because as he indicated, there is need for us to go up the value chain. Because then we financing this technology so farmers can increase the efficiency and production to access markets, and that makes them easier to pay. Yes. So it's not all an issue of just financing them to buy, but when they buy, what is the value they will create with that technology to increase their income and also be able to pay and buy better technologies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Also, he's still around. You can see him if you have more questions on that. So we go to our engineer, Alice. There's a question. If you have a response, please submit it.
Thank you for that answer, and I will not try to answer for the minister, he was here, but I'll give what I know. The program on Enable Youth is still going on, it is still progressing. I would not understand how you say the shortlisting and it took 1 year, then the training and the verification. Because every year there is a cohort, and for the last 3 years that I've interacted with that program, they have been training over 800 youths. 800 youths. This year, 2025-26, we have increased the training sessions, not sessions, training centers, because the need was a lot. But what happens, now this is my personal observation, after the training, the youths don't go to do what they said they want to go and do. They just attend the training, is usually 9 months, in a full boarding facility where they are fed and given a lot of information. After that, each graduate, let me call them graduate because most of them graduate, they are supposed to apply the loan. The ADB is a loan to government, but now that money is to be loaned to the youths to do the enterprises they said they are going to do. And they are very varied, from production to processing to, what is that name? The logistics, the selling, even the digital platforms. They don't take up the loan. That money is in AFC. It is not in the ministry, but it is the ministry that manages. So you, as a graduate youth from the training, you are supposed now to follow up with your proposal to see the funding. So it is not that the training does not go on. It does, even now as I speak. There are 9 centers already having the trainees. So I would want you to maybe give me your number and I follow up if it's a specific youth or a specific region that has not been tackled, and which value chain. We have had very many value chains on beekeeping and honey processing, dairy, value addition, the vegetables, the drying, and now the pure. How to enter into the business of renewable energy technology. So maybe after this, you can give me the specific region and the specific youth. Maybe they never checked their email and the time lapsed. What I know, there was one time there was oversubscription because the facilities could not take all the youth. But those youths now are taken to the next cohort, which now the ministry has expanded the training center. So maybe let's connect and then see. But I encourage all the farmers, all the young and old farmers, to encourage the youths to apply to that training and later on to apply for that fund. But what people imagine is that it is free money. It is not. It is a loan. Okay, some the interest is 0, some the maximum interest is 3%. So you can imagine. Thank you.
Thank you. Claps for Madam Engineer. So, Mr. Dominic, you can support the farmer to respond. There are questions about seed saving.
Okay. Asante sana kwa kumkulima mwenzangu. Seed Savers Network wanakuwa na trainings za wakulima, maneno ya seed processing yote kutoka kwa shamba, na tuko na seed school ambayo wakulima wanakuja kusoma maneno ya mbegu. Wakati tuna boot camp na kila mtu anakaribishwa pale, na tutakuwa in touch na wewe ndio tuone vile tutasaidiana.
Interpreter?
Yeah, I think she has summarized well in terms of what we offer at Seed Savers Network, and we're also working in Kakamega, and we'll be happy to connect. We are at our hall, so we'll be happy to connect, and your group and also the community can join our training. And also, it's also good to share that we also have the seed school whereby we train, and she is one of the trainers. We call her Professor.
Claps for Professor. So we have finished this session, and we want to invite Professor Rewe to do just a wrap-up. But before that, our panelists, thank you so much for your contribution. We want to stand up and take a photo. You know, photos are evidence we were here. So if you allow, you can come here for the photo as Professor comes in front.
We can have Karemi join, who did the presentation, and Judith also join kindly. Quick photo session, and then we can pass it over to Prof.
Professor Rewe, join us, please. Thank you. Professor, you have the mic. Claps for our panelists as they go back. Feel free to network with them. I hand over now to Professor.
Yeah, we are going to close this session, and I really appreciate everyone that has attended the Powerful Food Partnership session. We have takeaways, which are just a call to action. And I'd like to remind colleagues about the clarion call for KENAF. When we say KENAF, unajibu namna gani? Sauti ya mkulima. KENAF.
Sauti ya mkulima.
Sauti ya mkulima. What about RA Pure? I want to teach you that one too as we close. When I say RA Pure, you say join the movement. Okay? RA Pure. Join the movement. Clap for yourself. That's great. That's powerful. Colleagues and fellow learners, we have learned from professors here, like Professor Wangui. One thing I got as a takeaway, which we need to carry on, is that we can produce regeneratively while using regenerative or renewable energy. That was from Libaisi. Thank you very much for that important speech. And she is the face of the movement. And if you want to join the movement, just have a look and talk to Judith Livaisi. I heard from Wilson, and one of the things he said, and this is so important, is that awareness is not equal to what? Adoption. Awareness is not equal to adoption. So that means one of the call to actions is how do we convert awareness to adoption? And I was very impressed that our farmers are women, which is very good in the RA Pure space, and that Nexus integration is an area of concern. We have RA, we have Pure, but the Nexus integration is an item of concern. Patrick Sigay put something out here which is so key. Affordability and access to finance is more about business case rather than the technology itself. That is very key. And it came out clearly in the end that you cannot just finance for the purchase of the technology. You must finance a business case so that it is giving the technology absorber or the adopter the ability to pay back. Please remember that. And when we were at the convening of the bioeconomy financing by the Trade and Development Bank recently here in Nairobi, one of the presenters from, I think, FSD Africa, something like that, she said something key, that money is like water. What does that mean? It flows. And what's the problem with something that flows? It hates what? Barriers. It hates barriers. So you have to consider that people who have capital don't like barriers. There must be breaking of barriers for capital to flow. Engineer Alice Nyaga, thank you. You know, governments all over the world, and we were in China recently, and they have a national policy called the Green Development Agenda. And I'm very glad because their policy says by 2030 they will be carbon neutral, by 2060 they'll be carbon zero. And they're very serious about it, and one of the things they're doing is the adoption of RA and Pure at industrial scale. So once those policies are activated, it means we are supposed to go at industrial scale. Mr. Onchaba, thank you. I was listening to you, then I realized very quickly that coalition building does not just win you elections. Coalition buildings can also promote RA and Pure. So thank you, Onchaba, very much. I want to finish with the beautiful professor, Her Excellency, Madam Seed Ambassador Fama Wangoi. Mbegu, mchanga, na nini? Dawa. You remember that? Mbegu, mchanga, dawa. Seed, soil, and biopesticides. Dawa hai. I was very impressed by that presentation because when we talk to them during our encounters with farmers, we describe the soil as a living being, a living organism. And we tell them, soil is like a donkey. The donkey helps you a lot, carrying water. It goes to the well, the rivers, you burden it with things. Imagine if you don't feed the donkey. What will happen? And you keep on burdening it with water and a lot of luggage on the back. One day in the middle of the road, it will do what? It will collapse. Our soils have collapsed. That's what we are saying. And the movement is about bringing life back to our soil. Thank you, Professor, for that very good lesson. Now, it is very interesting to know that indigenous seed is nutritious, indigenous seed is resilient. And I heard one thing from her, Maji ya Mungu. That was powerful. Be like Joseph. I was wondering that we have news headlines in Kenya. When there are floods, people die. When there are droughts, people die. It's not fair. I think the movement, one of the intentions of the movement is that we be like Joseph. There's so much water in this country. If you do it in terms of distribution in the year, there's so much water. Why can't that water then, like what the lady, good professor, has said, be preserved for the days of scarcity? So one of the action points she's raised for us, water harvesting. That is also, to me, an RA pure objective. I want to finish off by looking at a very important aspect that Patrick Sigei raised, even as I look at Wilson's answer. Do not just finance to buy, finance to build capacity to pay. I really like that. Do not just finance to buy. If you just finance to buy, there'll be a lot of buying, but there'll be a lot of defaulting at the same time. And that's a crisis. That's why some of those financial institutions give up with farmers, because there's a lot of defaulting. So we have to build capacity to buy, and I hope the movement, that is what we want to do. So the Enable Youth example, we have it in Kwani University. I want to agree with the engineer. We have a student we sponsor and is doing poultry production. He is now independent. The student is actually making money. He's now independent. He has 1,000 birds and is really doing well as a business because he did poultry production well through the Enable Youth Fund. So it's working if you are serious. The other students we sponsored, we were very embarrassed because instead of building their portfolios in agribusiness, they went and bought iPhones, and they are not business. And because it's government loan, who cares? I want to finish by telling you something about the enabling environment. We are mostly focusing on the push side of the macroeconomics, agroecology. We are talking about the food systems, building the value chain. That's very good. But there is also the market system this side, which is supposed to provide the incentive for people to invest. The pool. What pools the products? What I've realized is that emerging technologies and emerging initiatives like Area and Pure, they have one challenge. They have competition. And the competition is from conventional agriculture, which already has its market cut out. Supermarket chains, what. So the question here is, how do we spark off a revolution? And my answer is simple. What if World Farmers Organization, when they were doing their dictate to take Safari Park Hotel as their venue, if they had put in the procurement requirement that all the meals that will be consumed here during our AGM must be procured from farmers compliant under RA and Pure. You will change the system. That is called the enabling environment. We did it with promoting women and youth in Kenya. We have a law, procurement law, 30% of procurements must be quoted for women and youth. It's not so difficult. Oh yes, if we just quota some of this, even if a law comes out that supermarkets, 30% of the produce, fresh produce they put there, should come from Area and Pure, you'll spark a revolution. That is my take and my call to action. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Area Pure, join the movement. Good night, colleagues.
Thank you so much. We stand adjourned. And there was a quick announcement. If you have your headphones that you carried from the other sessions, please take them at the back where we have the system. Thank you. God bless you and goodbye.
Umeacha kwenda live.